Was good, y'all. It's finally again time to talk about should you summon or should you skip this weekend. And yeah, as I can see, we have a lot of banners to choose from. We have Ancients, we have a 2x, we have a 2x on Divines, we have a 10x, we have a 10x for Divines. And yeah, we are going to go through all the options, all the house, whys, whens, and all that major good stuff. So yeah, let's go from the top. So Ancient Summonings. Honestly, this Ancient Summoning is probably a straight up skip. So the good part about Ancients is you can't necessarily get anything too bad because everything in there is rare, everything is in there is nice. But at the end of the day, if you take a look at the units in Ancient Summoning in general, you have a very high chance of getting something undesirable if there isn't a specific raid up. And furthermore, it is very recommended for everyone to go by their account or by their preferences for heroes. It doesn't always have to be account progression. And mainly pick a 10 times banner for Ancients, because there it is around a 50% chance to actually get what you want when you happen to hit it on the 10 times banner. So if you have Ancients, if you're a whale, if you want to make some progress, if you want some unique characters, if you need some help for Codex, Arena, all that good stuff, feel free to use your summons on the Ancients, but I don't recommend it. I would recommend holding out for a 10 times banner, as well as considering the fact that there's actually someone we might get around Lunar Festival. We all know Lunar New Year, Chinese New Year, however you want to call it, is going to be around the 10th of February, so in around 3 weeks from now on. And on Forerunners, obviously Forerunners being a bit ahead of us, with apparently a content difference of around 2 weeks, maybe 3 to 4 weeks at the latest, they have a new hero. And let's talk a bit about that new hero. So yeah, in regards to the new hero, it is a Valderon. Same with Garn, he is chaotic and chaotic only, but a lot for the chaotic faction. And if you take a look at him, he's probably the most badass looking character in the entire game up until now. And an interesting thing I've seen from a live recording of him is that his chest pulses. It's kind of creepy, but it's also kind of cool. So yeah, in general, if you really wanted to summarize his kit pretty quickly, then it comes out to a self-boosting fighter. So he mainly boosts himself, makes himself stronger, not necessarily his allies, which you can mainly see when you take a look at his Lord bonus. Even though I'm a bit sorry for how small that one is. Let me see if I can fix that. Alright, now back to the task at hand. So, as usual, he increases attributes by 15%, and then the standard ones based on the lost HP up to 60% extra damage at 30% HP. And now the important part, when the faction Lord Valderon, so him, is deployed, deals damage equal to 50% of current HP to 3 nearby enemies, excluding elites and bosses, so it's pretty much whatever, and then increases his damage dealt by 30% and reducing his damage received by 20%. Each unit damaged further increases Valderon's damage by 5% and reduces his damage taken by 5%. So up to 45% increased damage, 35% reduced damage if he hits 3 enemies on him being deployed. Which, as you can see, is a pretty on him focused Lord effect. As well as, let's get back to trying to describe him very simply. So, he is a self-boosting, self-damage increasing fighter that can die up to 3 times without actually dying. So he can revive up to 3 times, and each time he does revive, he reduces his own attack and damage by 15%. So he's going to be super powered the first deployment, a bit weaker on the first death, and then he's going to get significantly weaker with his deaths. And then he gets this Karma of the Fallen. And what Karma of the Fallen does is not only does it make him do less damage, but also increases his respawn timer. So if he died 3 times and then he dies the 4th time, instead of 60 seconds, he's going to have a total respawn time of 150 seconds, which is about 2.5 minutes, which is quite mental. But in general, he is supposed to be quite strong. I'm not going to make any major judgments at the moment, but he is a self-boosting chaotic fighter, so obviously he's not going to really work in other teams. but as well as, or especially considering the fact that he only boosts himself, he's someone you can slap into a team and don't need to build the whole team around him. He's pretty much the team by himself. So let's say you have a team already with 9 set units, you can just throw him in, he's going to boost himself, he's going to be super strong. And as well as the fact that, which is now kind of like the gold standards for fighters, you can see his range right there. He has a 2-tile range, so you could place him behind the tank, have him reach over the tank, and then do damage against the enemy. At the end of the day, this dude is going to come to global in around 2 weeks to a month. He looks fucking sick, he is a lord, and we're going to get him with a 10 times banner for sure, which gives us around a 50% chance to actually get him if you do pull a lot. And yes, I know you shouldn't really plan around ancients, nor can you really get a lot of ancients besides actually buying them. But honestly, if it's about luck, you should really try to increase the chances as much as possible, especially with resources as rare as ancients. So, alright, now that we figured out the ancient situation, let's get back to the normal situation, which is going to be talking about the 2 times banners. So honestly, for 2 times banners, it's the same it always has been. It never is a mistake to summon on a 2 times banner, because the difference between a 0.5% and a 1% chance to summon a legendary is always quite huge. And in most cases, for most accounts, especially if you're starting out, you're still in the mid game, you're missing a lot of not specific legendaries, but legendaries in general, it is always smarter to summon on a 2 times banner compared to a 10 times banner, because even if you pull a legendary on the 10 times banner, it is not 100% guaranteed to be the legendary you're actually expecting it to be. So if you're just starting out, if you want to use your summons, if you just need legendaries, summon on the 2 times banner. But if you want to hold out for something more tangible, something better, you could hold out for a 1+1 banner, especially if your pity is rather high, or you could wait for 2 times 10 times, which also might come with the Lunar Festival, but there's no guarantees, at least at the moment. So, same goes for the divine summonings, and here I recommend, please don't use your divines on 10x banners. The difference between using a divine on a 10 times banner and a 2 times banner is significant. Significant, there we go. So it's basically between a 6% chance to get a legendary and a 12% chance, and the difference is staggering. It's a whole 6%. As well as the fact that Divine Pity sucks. Divine Pity comes out to around 48, which obviously in 99.9% of cases never happens, but is ridiculous regardless. And honestly, you shouldn't tempt fate with your divines, and I recommend for everyone to actually use your divines on either 2 times or 2 times 10 times banner, and not on a 10 times one. But now that we've talked so much about the 10 times banner, let's talk about the 10 times banner. So, who do we have here? It is the man himself again. It is Hex. So, about Hex. Hex is pretty simply described as a single target magic dealing marksman who has most of his use in Void Rift and Guild Boss. At least for the moment, it's only Void Rift and Guild Boss where he is truly useful. Because, as I said, he's a magic dealing marksman or magic damage dealing marksman, so that kind of disqualifies him from higher gear rate 3, as well as him being single target, which takes out gear rate 1 and gear rate 2 as a main DPS because he can't quite attack fast enough. Now, Hex has an interesting mechanic in which he takes a certain amount of time to use his attacks. No doubt they are super powerful, but they take a significant amount of time to charge up, be it him drawing a card, drawing his bow, all that. And that ends up also kind of sidelining him when it comes to Arena. He is powerful in Arena, but you're not really going to see him be the meta choice because of his randomness, because of the RNG involved in his kit, as well as the fact that he does take quite a bit of time to actually get to dealing his damage. But no doubt, Hex is one of the probably top 3 or at max top 5 strongest unit when it comes to Guild Boss. And if you're still interested in hitting 30k, 50k, if you still need to get there, Hex is definitely someone you could consider picking up, especially if you want to run him with a Piercer faction and already have the Silas Viana combo to match it. And yes, that might come as a surprise to some, but Hex is way more effective in the Piercer faction than he is in an Inferno faction, unless you actually have a Zillitu that makes up for you sacrificing a bit of his damage. But so much as to his kit, let's talk about his awakenings. So for all those that do already have a Hex, it's not bad to pull for him, but he does get a lot of his power from his base kit alone. Though the chance to draw Fool, which is probably the strongest damage card in Hex's kit, which combines all his special cards into a single card, his A1 is pretty decent. When it comes to doing damage, his A1 is pretty nice, and if you already have a Hex, you have the summons, and you're not really looking for anything specific anymore, you just want to push your guild boss numbers, his A1 might be something to go for. His A3, on the other hand, before people found out about that whole hollow rage boosting shenanigan, this ultimate or this awakening was way stronger because it extended his duration. It allowed him to nearly infinitely ult even without considering a Laurel, a hollow, or any rage boosting in general, which just made him really, really strong. But now with the introduction of the Laurel and hollow rage boosting tactics, his A3 kind of lost a bit in power. And now the interesting part is A5. So before this one, each draw returns one card of fate was just what it did. Basically, he was returning the cards to himself, and at the end of the day, before they changed it, because you can see they changed it, he actually lost damage in Guild Boss if you brought your Hex to A5 in comparison to A3 or even A4, because using those cards of fates again takes a significant amount of time, which then cuts down on the Awakening 3 or the duration of his ultimate. But now they've changed it, and it is actually probably worth it to go for A5, because I doubt they haven't significantly tested it and just added in the 30%, he will still come out less. So what they did is just slap on a 30% increased damage. So every time he now uses the Joker, which is him doing his most powerful card, or the one from his A1, he'll just increase his damage by 30%, which should offset him taking longer in his animations. So A5 Hex is now actually something to go for. Not that it's realistic or that I will go for it, nor should you, but it is an option. Alrighty, Ferssi. So Ferssi's pretty straightforward. The main usage you're going to see for him is going to be, he's going to be straight up healer. He's going to heal people, he's going to keep people alive, as well as give them AoE damage reduction. So in content with AoE damage, for example, upcoming 19 to 21 AMR, with the boss obviously hitting through AMR and him conspicuously giving inspiration to 3 units, honestly might be a sign that we're getting AMR, and I believe Ferssi is going to be one of the premier choices there alongside of Constance. But enough of that. So basically he's a healer. He's going to be good at keeping your people alive, for example, be it Void Rift, be it Gear 2, and he's also going to apply a minor inspiration buff at only 15% of his base attack, so nothing compared to a Dolores, as well as him furthermore increasing the healing allies receive if there is AoE damage happening. What that means is basically he's a good healer, he has some increased utility, and he's probably going to outshine epic alternatives, but at least for the moment there's no content where anyone would 100% need a Ferssi, nor is there any real point in going for a healer, because the impact a healer has on your account, if it's not a rage region healer, compared to just having a healer that just heals, at least in Ferssi's case, isn't big enough. He's nice, but I wouldn't aim for him, especially if you already have a Hex, and unless you want to get every hero in the game, there's no need to pull for Ferssi. You might as well get him off banner whenever this banner is over. Awakening wise, the A1 is just some more added healing, A2 is a more stat increase, which also translates to more healing. This is again more healing being more healing at a shorter interval, more rage region, and then increased healing multiplier by 20% for 10 seconds after receiving AoE damage. So as you can see, Ferssi is a single target healer whose whole kit is focused around mitigating AoE damage, which is kind of interesting. But just keep in mind Ferssi when you're thinking about AMR 19 to 21. Alrighty, Theowin. Honestly, Theowen is no one you should pull for because he's a fusible unit, so at the end of the day you might as well fuse him, which doesn't quite take away from his strength. He might come in useful in anti-air arena, he is definitely useful in pushing gear rate 3, but at the later end of gear rate 3 you don't really see him anymore. As well as him being able to help you in early campaign, but that's around the point where you stop using him, and him also not having a place in Guild Boss. So he's alright, he's a fusible unit, but you shouldn't actually pull just because you don't have him. Cyclone got a rework. Cyclone was tried to be made special. Cyclone was tried to be turned into a dodge tank, so someone that gains survivability through dodging instances of damage. Didn't quite happen, he never really got the time to shine, and at the moment he's just a mediocre epic, and you might as well skip him. It's not going to hurt you if you don't have him, and not even in Faction Trial is he honestly someone that really benefits you. In comparison to Titus' only real use is mainly Faction Trial. If you upgrade your Titus to 6 stars, if you max skill him, if you max awaken him, he has some rather decent survivability, as well as some niche usage for Guild Boss, but not Guild Boss, for Guild Wars. So GVG, there might be some niche usage for your Titus, but honestly don't put too much hope into him. Basically, he's a self-healing defender that can't get healed from allies, so he's kind of like an Oleg, but through healing instead of giving himself a shield, as well as having the drawback of not being able to be healed. When you look at him from a tank perspective, he's definitely not on the same level as a Baron or an Oleg, but he's definitely not bad. He's an alright-ish unit, though I wouldn't again recommend anyone to pull on this banner just to get their hands on a Titus. Alright, now that we've discussed pretty much all the heroes in this banner, let's talk a bit more about the should you summon because of more specific reasons. So, Spiritual Altar, again, we're going to have an event where you can summon and you're going to get points and you're going to get rewards along those points, as well as shards. So, starting from, again, Friday, it's going to be a shard summoning event for Valeron, so the epic lord of the Chaos Dominion, in comparison to Garn and then Valderon when he actually comes out. Would I say Valeron is particularly worth going for? No. Is it hard to actually get him? No. Do you need to summon to get him? No. So if you don't feel like summoning on this banner, you can honestly skip it. You're going to be able to get your Valeron anyway. Even if you heavily desire him, there's no need for you to go out of your way to summon just to get a couple of shards for Valeron. And the only reason you would want to summon is probably if the Spiritual Altar rewards are good. But even then, that's kind of like whale-ish territory, and I don't think I actually need to advise people with more money than sense. Whoops. Alright, so yeah, that was my conclusion in regards to this banner. And I should be live around the time this video comes out, so if you want to, feel free to check me out. And yeah, appreciate all of you, and we see each other in the next one.